It's 2 a.m., and you've kicked one leg out from under the blanket. A minute later, you pull it back in. Your arms have goosebumps, small hard bumps rising along the skin, and for a moment, without thinking about it, your body tries to fluff hair that isn't there. Nothing happens. No fur lifts to trap a layer of warm air, because you don't have any. You reach over, half asleep, and drag the comforter higher. That small useless flinch is a fossil. Not a bone in the ground, but a leftover command still running in your nervous system, left over from an animal that used to have a coat. Here's the strange part. Every tool your body owns was built for the opposite problem. Humans are, by a wide margin, the best heat-dumping mammal alive, more sweat glands per square inch of skin than any other primate. Skin bared to the open air specifically so heat could escape faster. For a couple of million years, evolution kept sharpening one skill, losing warmth quickly, on hot open ground, under a relentless sun. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If your ancestors spent that long turning the body into a radiator, built to bleed heat away as fast as possible, how did they survive the night? Not the warm nights. The other ones. The ones near freezing, in the open, with nothing between skin and the dark. That question doesn't have a simple answer, and the search for one runs through a fireplace 1,000,000 years old, a needle small enough to lose in your palm, and a strand of genetic evidence hiding inside a louse. Start with the body itself, because the cooling system wasn't an accident. Somewhere around 2 to 3 million years ago, early members of our lineage began moving out of shaded forest and into open, sun-blasted grassland in East Africa, chasing prey, or scavenging carcasses, or simply following food across longer distances meant working hard in direct heat for hours at a stretch. Panting, the strategy most mammals rely on, cools you slowly. It couldn't keep pace with a body working that hard in that much sun. So a different solution took over: sweat. Human skin developed a density of eccrine glands unmatched anywhere else in the primate world, and body hair, which traps heat against skin, gradually thinned to almost nothing. Bare skin could radiate warmth directly into the air. It was, for daytime survival on the savannah, close to perfect engineering. But perfect for noon is a liability at midnight. Take away the sun, and that same efficient, hairless, heat-shedding body has nothing to hold warmth in once the temperature drops. Ground that baked all day releases its stored heat back into the sky after dark, and within a few hours a warm evening can turn sharply cold. An animal built to lose heat fast doesn't stop being good at its job just because the temperature has flipped against it. So picture the actual problem, not as an abstract fact, but as a physical one. You are lying on open ground as the last light goes. You have no fur to trap air near your skin. Your children are cold too, and small bodies lose heat faster than large ones. There's no walled shelter, no woven blanket, nothing manufactured. Whatever gets your family through until sunrise has to be either found, made, or figured out that same night, and it has to work again tomorrow, and the night after that. The first and oldest answer we have physical proof of is fire. At Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, deep inside a cavern where wind and rain couldn't have carried in a wildfire, researchers led by Francesco Berna identified burned bone fragments and plant ash dated to roughly 1,000,000 years ago, heated in a way consistent with a controlled, maintained flame rather than a chance blaze. Someone, some ancestor probably belonging to Homo erectus, was keeping fire alive inside a cave, on purpose, long before our own species existed. Fire solved a great deal at once. Warmth, obviously, but also light after dark, protection from predators drawn to darkness, and eventually the ability to cook food and unlock calories raw meat and plants couldn't offer as easily. For a group huddled close to a hearth, the cold night problem had a workable answer. Except fire has a radius. Step a few feet away from the flames and the advantage disappears. Fire needs fuel, needs tending, needs someone awake to feed it, and it does nothing for you while you're walking, hunting, or migrating across open ground far from camp. As human populations eventually pushed out of Africa and into higher latitudes, into places where winter wasn't an occasional cold snap, but a season that could kill, fire alone couldn't be the whole story. Something else had to be covering the gap between the hearth and the freezing air just past it. That something turns out to be older and stranger than most people assume. In 2003, geneticists David Reed and Mark Stoneking traced the evolutionary split between head lice and body lice, the second of which lives specifically in clothing rather than hair, and used the genetic distance between them to estimate when humans first began regularly wearing something on their bodies. Their calculation pointed to roughly 170,000 years ago. That date lands long before any needle, any woven cloth, any garment has ever been found in the ground. The genetic evidence says humans were already wearing something, probably simple wraps or draped hides, tens of thousands of years before there's a single physical scrap of it left to dig up. That gap between the genetic clue and the physical object is worth sitting with. It means clothing began as something crude, not tailored, not fitted, just enough animal hide or plant fiber draped and held in place to blunt the worst of the cold. Useful but limited. A loose hide keeps wind off your back. It does very little for hands, feet, or a child small enough to lose heat in minutes. The real leap comes later, and it's small enough to hold between two fingers. In the Altai Mountains of Siberia, inside Denisova Cave, archaeologists recovered a bone needle roughly 50,000 years old, carved with a deliberate eye for thread, likely made by Denisovans, one of the other human lineages that shared the landscape with our own species and with Neanderthals. A needle means something a draped hide never could. It means seams. It means shaping material to the curve of an arm or a foot rather than just wrapping it around a torso. It means layered, fitted, wind-resistant clothing, the kind that turns a hostile Siberian winter into somewhere a soft-skinned, sweat-cooled primate can actually live. And that timing is not a coincidence. It lines up almost exactly with when modern humans begin appearing in the deep cold of northern Eurasia in serious numbers, regions previous hominins had occupied only thinly, if at all. The needle isn't a curiosity in a museum case. It's very possibly the piece of technology that opened an entire hemisphere. Even with fire and fitted clothing, biology still had one more layer of defense held in reserve, and you're carrying part of it right now. When the body's core temperature starts to drop, muscles begin contracting rapidly and involuntarily, generating heat through motion alone. That's shivering, and it's not a malfunction, it's a last resort furnace built directly into the muscle tissue. Human infants, born without the ability to shiver effectively, instead carry deposits of a specialized tissue called brown fat, packed with mitochondria, whose entire job is to burn energy as heat rather than store it. Adults retain small amounts of this same tissue, tucked around the neck and shoulders, a leftover heating system from an infancy when nothing else could keep a small body warm through a cold night. Put all of it together, and the picture that emerges isn't of a species that solved the cold with a single clever trick. It's a species that answered the same problem on 4 separate levels at once. The skin sweated by day and shivered by night. The hearth held a circle of warmth wherever a group chose to stop. The loose hide, worn long before any needle existed, blunted the worst of the wind. And eventually the needle turned that hide into something closer to a second skin, fitted and sealed, precise enough to carry a family across landscapes their bodies were never built to survive. None of those 4 solutions came from strength or size or a thicker coat. They came from paying close attention to a problem, generation after generation, and slowly building an answer nobody could have solved in a single lifetime. A parent noticing which hide kept a child warmest through the coldest hours. Someone realizing a fire tended carefully through the night mattered more than one built carelessly and left to die out. Someone else, we'll never know their name, first threading a strip of sinew through a hole worked into bone, and discovering that a wrapped hide and a stitched one were not the same thing at all. Which brings you back to tonight. To the blanket you pulled up without thinking, the thermostat you never have to consciously manage, the goosebumps rising uselessly on skin that gave up its fur a very long time ago. That small shiver, that instinct to reach for warmth in the dark, isn't a flaw left over from a design that never got finished. It's the oldest working part of a system your ancestors spent 1,000,000 years building around a body that was never supposed to survive the cold alone. You didn't inherit fur, you inherited the fire, the hide, and the needle.